From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Today, we look at Donald Trump's pending trade war with America's biggest trading partners, along with Elon Musk's latest critique of U.S. military's most advanced fighting machine. We've got the latest, but first, the headlines. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden will attend Donald Trump's inauguration on the 20th of January. In 2021, Donald Trump did not attend President Biden's inauguration, becoming the first president in more than 150 years to skip his successor's swearing-in ceremony. A U.S. military maritime patrol aircraft passes through the Taiwan Strait. China deploys its naval and air forces, warning the American aircraft against flying through the sensitive region. Clashes erupt in Pakistan's capital Islamabad, resulting in the death of at least 4 police officers. This as protesters armed with sticks and slingshots demand the release of the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has been in jail since August of last year. The Democratic Republic of Congo and neighboring Rwanda signed a deal advancing peace talks mediated by Angola. The Democratic Republic of Congo accuses Rwanda of supporting ethnic rebels who have captured mineral-rich eastern regions in the African country. And Indonesia rejects tech giant Apple's $100 million investment, calling it inadequate. Indonesia had already banned the sale of the iPhone 16 in the country after Apple failed to make the phone using 40% of the parts produced locally. We begin in the United States, where special counsel Jack Smith has asked 2 courts to dismiss federal criminal cases against President-elect Donald Trump. Smith acknowledged that the Justice Department's policy prohibits prosecutions against a sitting U.S. president. The first case accused President-elect of plotting to overturn the 2020 election outcome after President Joe Biden's victory, which resulted in the attack on the U.S. Capitol by MAGA supporters. The second case alleged that Donald Trump illegally retained classified documents when he left the White House in 2021. Now, District Judge Tanya Shukin has put an end to the federal effort to hold Donald Trump responsible for overturning his 2020 defeat. Meanwhile, the decision in the documents case is still pending. Smith in his court filings recognized the legal shield that surrounds the commander-in-chief, even if he is criminally culpable. Donald Trump, who will again oversee the Justice Department as president, was expected to end the cases if reelected to office.
Trump's return to the White House sets at odds 2 fundamental and compelling national interests. On the one hand, the Constitution's requirement that the president must not be unduly encumbered in fulfilling his weighty responsibilities, and on the other hand, the nation's commitment to the rule of law. In this situation, the Constitution requires that this case be dismissed before the defendant is inaugurated.
Now, in a social media post, the president-elect said that the 2 cases were empty and lawless and should have never been brought. Earlier, Donald Trump accused the Biden administration of weaponizing the Justice Department and called his judicial proceedings a political witch hunt.
I want to address the appalling announcement today by the egregiously corrupt Biden administration and their weaponized Department of Justice. Would you like me to talk about that? Larry, would you like me to talk about that? This horrendous abuse of power is the latest in a long series of witch hunts. We started a long time ago. I thought the investigation with the document hoax was dying or dead or over.
Now, Donald Trump faced 2 other state prosecutions while running for a second term. One of them involved to a porn star, Stormy Daniels, which resulted in a conviction on charges of falsifying business records. With the conviction in New York, Donald Trump made history by becoming the first former U.S. president to be found guilty of a crime. However, the sentencing in the hush money case has been postponed indefinitely as the president-elect's lawyers argue the verdict would interfere with his transition and presidential duties. The other case in Georgia also accuses Donald Trump of taking part in a scheme to overturn the 2020 election result illegally. However, the trial now seems unlikely. With all the criminal cases against Donald Trump ending or delayed, one thing is clear when it comes to the president and criminal charges. The commander-in-chief, at least in this case, Donald Trump, does seem to be above the law. And staying with Donald Trump, the president-elect has vowed to hit China, Mexico, and Canada with new tariffs on day one of his presidency in January. Donald Trump says that the taxes will be imposed to force these countries to crack down on illegal immigration and drug trafficking in the United States. In a social media post, the incoming commander-in-chief said that he will charge Mexico and Canada with a 25% tariff on all products, a move that appears to violate the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement. Meanwhile, an extra 10% tariff will be levied on China until Beijing stops the flow of illicit drugs, especially fentanyl, into the United States. During his presidential campaign, Donald Trump promised to impose 60 to 100% tariffs on Chinese goods and a tax of up to 20% on all U.S. trading partners.
We have tremendous economic power. And by the way, if we're not careful, we're not going to have that for long either. That's going to go down the tubes with everything else. But if China or some other country is behaving badly, we have things called tariffs that are so severe.
Donald Trump's threat drew swift responses from both Canada and China. The Canadian Deputy Prime Minister said Ottawa and Washington have one of the strongest and closest relationships when it comes to trade and border security. Meanwhile, Chinese diplomats reiterated that no one would win a trade war between the two sides.
The U.S. policy on trade with China, with other countries as well, will have impact, and that is really an important element that we have to consider. I think the first and most for us to do perhaps is to continue the good relation and momentum between our two countries and see what we can do together to promote for global trade instead of compromising our respective national interest and our common interest. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Mexico's lower house leader said an escalating trade retaliation would only hurt the public's pockets and won't solve the underlying problems. Germany's economic minister also responded to the president-elect's threat, saying Europe will ensure that its trade relations are in fact secure.
All I know are Donald Trump's statements during his election campaign, and I therefore do not want to speculate how things will proceed. At the same time, last night's decision could be an indication that he is very serious. First, the EU must respond united to this and not tear itself apart into 2 or 3 blocks of countries, but speak as a united Europe.
Donald Trump's tariff announcement also reverberated throughout global markets, with the Canadian dollar, the Mexican peso, and the Chinese yuan, British pound, and the euro dropping against the U.S. dollar. Notably, China, Mexico, and Canada are America's 3 biggest trade partners. In fact, last year, the 3 countries together purchased over $1 trillion worth of exports and provided nearly $1.5 trillion worth of goods and services to the United States. Economists say imposing hefty tariffs on the 3 nations would cost the average American household an additional $2,600 per year. And with Donald Trump's history of using taxes as leverage in negotiations, expect a roller coaster ride on pricing of various goods and services over the next 4 years. Ever since Donald Trump appointed Elon Musk to oversee government spending, it seems like the billionaire has a problem with just about everything. In fact, Musk's latest outrage is about the F-35 stealth fighter jet, which the Tesla CEO called obsolete and poorly designed. Now, taking to his social media platform X, Musk posted a video of Chinese drones as he wrote about the F-35 and saying it was designed by idiots.
The F-35 design was broken at the requirements level because it was required to be too many things to too many people. This made it an expensive and complex jack of all trades, master of none. Success was never in the set of possible outcomes. Unmanned fighter jets are obsolete in the age of drones anyway. We'll just get pilots killed.
The F-35 is made by the U.S. firm Lockheed Martin, but is a jointly funded project among several NATO members. The aircraft is, in fact, the world's most advanced fighter jet and has the world's most expensive and sophisticated stealth features and software. In fact, as air exercises with friendly nations have shown the performance of the F-35, which was able to destroy a large number of mock targets without even being detected. The F-35 has performed extremely well in combat, as evidenced by the Israeli Air Force when its F-35 jets remain undetected in Iranian airspace. The U.S.-made stealth fighter is currently operated by at least 10 nations, with another 9 awaiting deliveries of the aircraft, all of which are America's closest allies. And the aircraft is so good that China has reportedly spent millions of dollars trying to hack into Lockheed Martin's servers to get blueprints of the F-35. Even China's latest stealth fighter, which was revealed just last month, looks very much like a carbon copy of the American F-35. Now, despite Musk's criticisms of the F-35, American and NATO pilots swear by the aircraft's capabilities.
We have to make the site here fit for the F-35 at unprecedented speed. And that doesn't just mean modernizing Bukel as an air base in line with NATO standards. The modernization and renewal, the new construction of the runway had already been decided beforehand, so it fits in with the times. Yes, certainly one of the main objectives is to have our F-35 be trained together with the other partners that use the same weapon system, and we are talking about the F-35 Bravo or Alpha version, as our Air Force has, but as the Australian Air Force also has. We're also going to do that with the other countries that are participating.
These criticisms by Musk have sparked outrage on social media, with several veteran combat pilots calling the billionaire ill-informed. Coincidentally, Lockheed Martin's shares fell by 3.75% to a 4-month low after Musk critiqued the F-35. Now it remains to be seen whether Elon Musk will urge the Trump administration to cut back on the F-35 and whether it'll take away from the U.S. military's edge over both Russia and China. And now moving to South America, where a tiny nation of 600,000 is preparing for an oil boom. Suriname has discovered massive offshore reserves and plans to redistribute profits from the sales with its residents. The country's president promises to give $750 to each citizen as part of a program called Royalties for Everyone. But can this small country avoid the infamous oil curse and transform its future? Here's more on the nation's pending oil boom.
Imagine waking up to news that your country has struck gold. Only it's not gold, but oil. This is the reality for Suriname, a tiny South American nation of just 600,000 people poised to rewrite its story. With massive offshore oil reserves waiting to be tapped, Suriname is dreaming big and planning even bigger.
Projects. It's a giant project, a giant deepwater project, more than $10 billion, 220,000 barrels per day. So it will be one of the largest FPSO we ever built and designed. 32 wells, 200 kilometers of subsea lines. So it's an impressive project. We have some experience with it, and we are very happy to bring our expertise and our capacity of innovation to Suriname and to the people.
President Chan Santokhi isn't holding back either. On November 25th, when Suriname celebrated its Independence Day, he promised that every Surinamese citizen would share the country's wealth.
Everyone shall benefit from this opportunity, and no one will be left behind. You are co-owners of the oil incomes.
His Royalties for Everyone plan puts $750 into a savings account for each person with an attractive annual interest of 7%. Santokhi's announcement comes as neighboring Guyana is already basking in its oil boom. Guyana's riches have made it one of the wealthiest nations in South America. Hundreds of thousands of Guyana citizens living at home and abroad now receive a payout of around $464 a month after the country announced it was distributing its mind-boggling oil wealth. Even though the payout was originally planned as a $953 grant for each household in the country, it was reframed after concerns that some citizens, including young people who had not yet set up their own household, would be left out.
The per-person allocation also addresses the many concerns of young people who may not yet have a family, but thought that they will not benefit from the household allocations because they were not yet the head of the household.
And now Suriname is set to follow in its footsteps, with experts predicting at least $10 billion in oil revenues over the next 20 years. That's life-changing money for a country where 1 in 5 people live in poverty and the annual GDP is just $3.4 billion.
Out of the $10 billion, we intend to spend here in Suriname more than $1 billion, between 1 and 1.5 billion. It will create jobs, direct jobs, 2,000 jobs in next years, and indirect jobs, around 4,000 jobs, drilling services, logistics, support to operations.
Their fight for the good days began 4 years ago in 2020 when APA Corporation struck oil in Block 58, an offshore area believed to hold up to 6.5 billion barrels of oil. French energy giant TotalEnergies joined the effort, committing to develop a state-of-the-art floating production facility starting in 2028.
The production will come in 28. For sure, I promise to the President 28. I don't tell you the months because, it's a long journey. In fact, the project has already...
Dear attendees, but especially the people of Suriname, today is a historic day for Suriname, for all Surinamese people. For all of you, it is a historic day, an important day, a day that will help determine our future.
Now, even as the world pushes for greener energy, Suriname's oil has a low carbon footprint, giving it a competitive edge. But President Santokhi knows the risks. Many oil-rich countries like Venezuela and Angola fell victim to the oil curse, failing to turn their wealth into long-term prosperity. To avoid this, Suriname has set up a sovereign wealth fund, taking a page from Norway's playbook. This fund aims to ensure the oil wealth benefits not just today's citizens, but future generations too. Suriname's story is one of hope and ambition. From poverty to potential prosperity, the nation stands on the brink of transformation. If Suriname plays its cards right, this oil jackpot could fuel a legacy. And for the people of Suriname, the future has never looked brighter.
And finally, America's busiest holiday is in just a few days. As the Thanksgiving season heats up, airports are bustling, chaotic, and crowded with flyers. But one group of travelers has become a nuisance for everyone, the infamous gate lice. They are eager passengers who crowd the boarding area long before their group is called, clogging lanes and throwing order completely out the window. Now, American Airlines has introduced a bold new technology to tackle the menace of people who cut lines. Our final report looks at how this system could reshape airport etiquette.
If you've ever flown, you've seen that the moment boarding is announced, there is a particular group of flyers who just swarm the gates, hovering around the gates like moths to a flame. These eager beavers are ready to pounce the second they think no one's looking. Meet the gate lice. But this time, the gate lice are in for a surprise. American Airlines has unleashed a secret weapon, a boarding system that sniffs out the rule breakers. It is part tech, part tattletale, but all about justice. And here's how it works. If you try to board before your group, the system blasts an alert loud enough to make everyone turn and stare. Your boarding pass is then immediately denied and you're sent to the back of the line.
We are in the early phase of testing new technology used during the boarding process, designed to make sure customers receive priority boarding with ease and help the boarding experience by providing greater visibility.
The tech had its first showdown at airports in Albuquerque, Tucson, and Washington, D.C. Turns out, passengers loved watching the sneaky few get caught in the act. So now American Airlines is rolling out this tech to over 100 airports just in time for the Thanksgiving travel madness. But have you ever wondered why these enthusiastic flyers board early? Well, the reason is simple: overhead bin space. Airlines charge more than ever to check in bags, so passengers are clinging to their carry-ons like they are gold bars. Boarding early can mean the difference between easy stowage and cramming your bags under the seat with your legs. Naturally, the line cutters have gotten bolder, with some even inspired by social media hacks on how to beat the system. But this new tech? It's like the hall monitor nobody saw coming. Gate agents don't have to argue or play enforcers anymore. The system does the dirty work with a quick beep that sends guilty passengers back of the line. The response has been golden. Some travelers took to social media to cheer for the system, saying it was about time someone dealt with the chaos. And let's not forget the stats. American Airlines expects to fly over 8 million passengers across 77,000 flights this Thanksgiving season. That's a lot of opportunities for gatelites to try their luck. But this time, the tech is ready. So to all the future gatelites out there, beware. This is no ordinary boarding process anymore. Play by the rules or face public shaming. Because at the end of the day, nothing beats the sweet satisfaction of seeing line cutters caught in the act. And for the rest of us, maybe, just maybe, boarding a plane will finally be a little less stressful.
That's our show for today. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. We're so glad to have you with us, and we look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story,